Excuse me, would everybody please be seated and please
Oh, yeah.
silence your cell phones or turn them off.
right.
Thank you.
Casi no venía hoy, pero dije, so I'm here.
Okay. Hey, Veronica, tell them to close that door, please. Thank you. Ready, Officer Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the January 11th, 2017 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Miller,
Yes, President.
Mr. Irvine,
Here.
Mr. Peterson, Mr. Youngblood,
Here.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum of the committee with all six members present, sir.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of December 14, 2016. The minutes were previously distributed. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller,
Abstain.
Ms. Irvine,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes is passed with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Our next order of business today is the review of the finance report. Jeremy, good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Here to walk through the November revenue and expenses, and they follow a very similar form as what we've talked about over the past several months. Just to highlight some key line items here, on the fare and pass totals, we see that slightly down to budget for the month, but up to November of 2015. For the reduced fare subsidy, as we've talked about before, with the reduction due to the budget impasse down in Springfield, that's down for the month to budget, but flat to what we saw in 2015. And then non-fare box revenues, these are the advertising revenues, concession revenues, and the like. As we've talked about before, again, these continue to be very good performers for us. So we continue to see outperformance on a budgetary basis, as well as a year-to-date basis to November 2015. So overall, revenues for November were flat to budget and slightly up to November of 2015 to the tune of about $800,000. Average fare also is slightly up, and we continue to make progress on scofflaws with regard to free rides. On a year-to-date basis, again, following the same form as what we saw in November, we see fare and pass totals down slightly on a budgetary and year-to-date basis. And we'll talk more about how, again, the expense controls offset that reduction on the revenue line. Reduced fare subsidies, we see that down on a budgetary basis and up slightly to 2015. Again, that's just due to the timing of when we received the reduced fare subsidy last year. And then the non-fare box revenues, again, very strong outperformance on a budgetary basis as well as a 2015 year-to-date basis. Overall, revenues on a budgetary basis are down slightly of $7.7 million, but up on a comparison to 2015 year-to-date to the tune of $5.3 million. That 7.7, as we'll talk about on the expense side, is more than offset by the positive variance that we have on expenses. So again, we'll highlight that in a moment. Again, average fares are up and free riders are down as they were on the monthly analysis. On the expense side, we see labor relatively flat but slightly unfavorable. Material slightly favorable but essentially flat as well. Fuel and power, as we've talked about, due to the fact that we were able to lock in those commodity prices early, we continue to see a favorable variance on both of those line items. Provisions for injuries and damages and security services coming in essentially flat to budget. And other expenses are down slightly. And I believe we've talked about this a little bit before, but you tend to see, just due to the nature of the contracts, slightly positive in the early part of the year, and then some negative as we start hitting those contract payments near the end of the year. So again, as we'll see on the next page, the other expense line in particular still remains on a year-to-date basis very positive. So again, more than offset the negative variance that we see in November. Again, labor slightly unfavorable, but on a percentage basis, on $1 billion line item there, almost relatively flat. Material, again, relatively flat, and fuel and power have been a shining star for us in 2016 with significant outperformance there. Provisions for injuries and damages and security services, again, coming in relatively flat, and the other expenses, as I highlighted before, we continue to see positive variance there on a year-to-date basis. So again, that 10.3 that you see there at the bottom, that more than offsets the revenue that we talked about prior. So we continue to be in that $2.6 million positive variance on a net basis of our revenues and expenses year-to-date. For the three commodities that we use, fuel, power, and natural gas, we have positive variance on a monthly and annual basis. So again, very good news that was highlighted on the prior pages. And again, we not only were able to achieve that by locking in 2016 usage, we also were able to lock in for 2016 the 80% kind of benchmark that we use already for fuel and power. So again, we're at historic lows in those commodities, so it's a great time to lock in, and it gives us more budget certainty going into 2017.
Any questions?
Yeah, I've got.
Go ahead, please, Terry.
So just in terms of, as I look at sort of the non-fare box revenue,
Yes.
again, you're absolutely right. I mean, just one of the highlights for the year. Are you sort of tracking, again, for FY17? I know we've been leasing the concession stands at the stations, and there's a rotation of every 3 years. I think most of the contracts are out. What are the projections for FY17 in terms of non-fare box revenue?
We're looking at, again, aggressively marketing the strength of the system. And what I mean by that is that we have a very large footprint throughout the city. We have 1.5 million riders a day on the system, so that's a lot of eyeballs at the concession stands, at the advertising panels, whether they're street level or on platform. So again, we have a lot of opportunity to continue to grow those revenue streams. And again, we look for opportunities to work with the vendors that cover those contracts to see what kind of creative way that we can go ahead and again, continue to expand the revenue base. I can circle back on the exact revenue numbers, but again, we're aggressively pursuing some new options and expanding what we already have, because we have a great system.
Yeah, I think, Jeremy, what I was trying to get at was, one, what are the one-offs? And then what are those things that, again, the contracts are somewhat staggered in terms of the concession space.
Sure.
So you've got the one-offs, for example, if you lease out a station and, you're able to, like what we've got, I want to say up at North Avenue with Apple. So, that's sort of a one-off because you've got the station, they've got a long-term contract. But I was just concerned, and again, we can have this discussion a little later with the board, but
Sure.
what are those one-off opportunities versus opportunities that we think, could occur, especially with the concession stands, which the contract's up every 3 years, and I know we've got renewables there, but what are some of the things that we can look at as recurring?
Sure. Carol Morey, handles the contract for the concessions, but yeah, we are working hand in hand with her and her group to ensure that we do kind of expand the opportunities there. So we'll circle back with you once we have a more fully fleshed out plan.
Okay, and then the last question for me, fuel is starting to inch up a little bit. When will we get, I know we've got 80% already hedged for FY17. When do we start to lock in 2018?
we've already started locking in 2018, as well as 19. So we are taking advantage of the exceptionally low commodity pricing. So we were able to go ahead and start buying the commodities for 18 and in some cases for 19 as well.
During this month, we had, the World Series. And is there anything specific that we learned, for that day, that was, I guess, a record,
We'd like more of them. So yeah, we saw the highest rail ridership ever for the system on the day of the parade. So again, that was a great benefit to us. And again, obviously, we were more than able to handle the additional volume that was coming through the system and did so very well. So, again, we'll look for ways to hopefully capitalize on, kind of the Cubs' success in the summer and fall as, people want to continue to flock up to Wrigley Field for events around the Cubs games.
if we were able to handle that volume of people, does it mean, that we have excess capacity in rail?
I think Carol Morey would be better able to handle that question in particular.
Carol, good morning.
Morning. So in some cases, our customers had to wait as they entered the station, but we were definitely able to handle the crowds. It was kind of a all hands on deck operations in terms of having extra trains available, and having personnel at the stations to make sure that, we were assisting customers who maybe weren't familiar with our system and purchasing one-day passes. So I think it wasn't a normal day. It was all hands-on-deck effort, but we were able to handle it.
So what
So we
could
can
have,
handle the next year one.
yeah. So what could have been done, I think I raised a question yesterday, as regard to, with all of the street closure, and I know we took care of the 5 million, but the people that regular ride, what would be in place to kind of offset that in the future? You had streets shut down so that your regular riders wasn't as, because you had a crowd in town, so.
Yeah, I think the timing of the parade was helpful after rush hour as well, so that the timing of the parade did help us with handling the rush hour crowd as well as the additional passengers.
I guess as a follow-up to that, what's the process that you usually take when you have large events that we see that are coming, like last night, for example? How do we prepare for that?
So the service planning group will look at similar types of events. Obviously, last night was a different event we hadn't experienced before, but similar types of events, and look at in similar locations, and look at historical patterns of ridership, and then we make recommendations to operations about additional bus or rail service to accommodate it.
We also, just to amplify on that a little bit more, we obviously work very closely with the city and Office of Emergency Management to coordinate what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. We have extra personnel that are out on the street to better monitor the service and to make adjustments in terms of congestion or street closings and things like that. When an event involving the president is occurring, it's a somewhat unusual scenario because a lot of it has to do with where the president is going, and street closures happen, but then they end very quickly. So it isn't the same as, say, the World Series, where we knew that a whole neighborhood was going to pretty much be shut down for an entire afternoon or evening. So there has to be a lot of really close coordination with the city so that we know sort of what's happening and where. And the city and the Office of OEMC do a really good job of communicating to our control center to make sure that we're aware of the activity that's going on, the schedule that is being implemented, and that we can adjust our services accordingly to address that. From all accounts, from what I've heard, the service yesterday ran fairly well. I even got a compliment from someone about how easy it was to leave the McCormick Center event, and there were literally buses staged right outside the event to take them to the Green Line and Red Line to basically catch a train to go to their final location. So I think it was a a well-coordinated event. I think it went off very well. And obviously, we're very happy with the assistance we got from the city to make sure that we were able to accomplish that.
I noticed that the average fare, okay, was very high, 116, okay. Is that because of the World Series also?
Sure, that had some impact, again, as we saw new customers coming onto the system that may not have, kind of a pass or something like that. Those typically pay with full fare cash in a lot of cases. So again, that helps kind of increase that average fare number for the month.
I noticed that right now through year-end, the labor is somewhat negative, even though it's kind of small compared to the larger number. What's driving that negative factor? Is it overtime because of special events? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, and it is indeed, driven a lot by the overtime for a lot of the special events that we just talked about.
Any other questions?
Not a question, more of a comment, and I think Carol, this probably goes to Dorval and the entire team. This was the first year that all three service agencies could use the Ventra card. And the fact that you had that many visitors come in for the World Series, for the celebration, that they could seamlessly go from one to the next, and there seemed to have been no bumps in the road. I mean, there'd been something I'm sure we would have heard about it, but this was the first year as well that all three service agencies were able to use one fare medium, card fare medium, to go across. And then the other thing I was thinking about, this was probably with the president coming in, the biggest event we might have had at the new Cermak station, right down the street from the new McCormick Place at Cermak, as well as the Red Line Chinatown station as well. I was thinking both were in walking distance to McCormick Place and probably really experienced a nice turnout, I would say, last night at both of those locations. So,
Yeah, with regard to the Ventra, really appreciate the comments there. Mike Gwynn is really kind of the spearhead of the relationship with Cubic and setting up the Ventra system, and his team have done a great job, and appreciate, the comments there.
Any other questions? Since there are no further questions, thank you, Jeremy. Stay there, please. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of America, N.A. for the 2017 Bank of America Chamber Shuffle.
So speaking of Mike Gwynn, the
Jeremy
director-
and Mike Wynn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Michael
morning.
Gwynn, Director of Revenue. This is a little less exciting than Service Board integration, but a good thing nonetheless. Presented for your consideration is a co-promotion, an agreement with Bank of America for the Shamrock Shuffle, which will be held on April 2nd, 2017. This is the 13th year that CTA has partnered with the organizers of the Shamrock Shuffle to promote the event. CTA is providing $22,932 in unsold advertising on buses and trains in exchange for $28,400 in promotional value from the shuffle. This value to CTA will include sponsorship recognition and our logo in participant guides, on the webpage, in email communication from the organizers, and on banners at the start and finish of the course. This co-promotion will not only encourage current CTA customers to take the CTA for non-work related trips and to attend the shuffle, but also has the potential to encourage tourists and new customers to use CTA to follow runners along the race and access other Shamrock Shuffle events. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question. How will these kind of contracts be used to promote Ventra? Because I know I saw an advertisement, a handout for the Open House Chicago a few months back, and there was a CTA logo in there, but there was no information about Ventra and no link to the Ventra site. And I want to know how that
Sure.
is going to change going forward.
We try to work in Ventra messaging with all the participant guides to encourage people to buy, to get a Ventra card, to use Ventra to use the system. In the guides and in some of the emails, especially, that's a good opportunity to do it. The Bank of, the Marathon also is a Bank of America event. That's where we do a real large push to encourage people to purchase their fares in advance. We have the commemorative ticket for that. We don't do so much for the Shamrock Shuffle, but it's something that we try to work in with a lot of that longer form communication opportunity that we have.
I mean, is this an opportunity potentially to push people to use the Ventra app and use the transit tracker and some of the other features in there?
Definitely, definitely. We'll make sure that we have a good amount of time. This isn't until April 2nd, so we can make sure that we're incorporating all that messaging into what we put in there. And then especially for the for the marathon coming up, we'll take that into consideration as well, because
Okay,
it's
so even if Ventra isn't mentioned in this contract, you could insert that under the.
Sure,
under
yeah,
one?
the contract is just an agreement to swap unsold advertising space, and that's solely between CTA and the organizers. So in terms of the content that we get them to send out to everybody, we can definitely work in Ventra messaging.
Great, thank you.
And who oversight the contract, okay, and that is really even, okay, for both parties?
Well, it's a little tilted in our favor this year, but there's value in for the shuffle organizers to help get the word out with the car cards. They're going to get 388 car cards to put on the buses and trains that really promote the event and encourage people to take CTA. So that's of great value for them to help get the word out. And then in exchange, we get, as we mentioned, all that.
And in the marathon, okay, I mean, you have the same thing, okay, I mean, I've been trying to look, okay, for the CTA, okay, advertising, okay, and I don't find as much as we giving them.
So the advertising that we get is for this, it's on the banners, so it's at the race site. So we'll have the CTA logo at the start and finish. In the materials that get sent out to all the participants were included, and then in the emails. So that is something that is really targeted to the participants and then their friends who are going to then, attend to watch.
So you're comfortable, okay, that we are getting our share there?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think it's a great opportunity for us to promote CTA. It's not just people who are there to attend the race and participate in it, but it's all the tourists who are walking by. We'll see the logo out there, and I think it's a really good opportunity for CTA.
And how many more years, okay, do we do a RFP in this one, okay, to try to?
These are all just individual event-based. So we have the co-promotion program that sets the parameters for the trade. And for private, non-government sister agencies, they have to make an ad purchase, and then we can extend that ad purchase by going into unsold space in exchange for that other similar value in promotion of CTA. It's pretty straightforward, we have a value for the car cards, that what they want, and then there's a value for the promotional opportunities that they provide to us for the banners and for everything else. So it's a pretty straightforward, typically pretty easy process to negotiate.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Will we have some marketing material at both the airport stations, Midway and O'Hare as well?
We always look at those for the big events. For these things, we'll sometimes have information specialists, we'll have sales tables, people out there to guide people who are not familiar with the system, who are not familiar with the city, how to get to their hotels, how to access the system. We have maps. For the marathon, we do commemorative cards, so a lot of the races, it's a great way to start off their weekend because they get to come in, they get their first memento from the race, and it really starts the visit off on a very positive note.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the license agreement with East Side Plaza Management LLC for a bus turnaround at 3554 East 118th Street, Chicago, Illinois. Carl,
So the
Morning.
CTA has utilized a bus turnaround at the East Side Plaza Shopping Center, which is located at 3554 East 118th Street since 2006, under a license agreement with the shopping center. The shopping center and the CTA would like to extend the license for another 5 years with a 5-year option to renew. The turnaround is utilized by the number 30 South Chicago route, which serves the far southeast side and has average daily ridership of 3,300 with average Saturday ridership of 2,200. The shopping center provides a convenient drop-off area and destination for CTA customers and also provides restroom facilities for our operators. The annual fee for the license is $1, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
any questions?
Dollars a good deal.
Keep it at $1.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave
Thank
to
you.
place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Our final order of business is the review of 10 purchase and sales award recommendations. Presenter Ellen McCormick. Ellen, we will start with contracts A1 through A5. Any questions for contracts A1 through A5?
Yeah, well, A3, just take a few minutes. I was a little curious, it's, the original contract was $4 million. As of the first of the year, you had $3 million remaining on the contract. So I was a little bit curious as to why we were renewing it. Why was it coming before the board with so much left on the contract?
So we had originally gone out for this contract in 2015, and after we had worked with it for a little while, we realized that there was a provision we would like to add to the contract.
Okay.
So that's what we did. So we came back to you early. We went out, re-advertised, and we came back to you early.
So it's more to add a provision than additional money?
Correct.
Okay.
We just went out for a whole new bid. It just so happens that the same bidder won.
Any other questions for A1, A5?
Just,
I have just a question about about A2. So with the antifreeze recycling services, do we still need to purchase any antifreeze on top of that? Or does this include all the antifreeze costs for the whole fleet?
I believe it's all the antifreeze. If I'm incorrect, if someone from the using department wants to come, that would be great. We do save
We'll
quite a
have
bit
Don
of money,
Bonds
though.
come up. He can answer your question.
Donald Bonds, Vice President for Vehicle Maintenance. In some cases, we buy very little of new antifreeze, but most of our antifreeze is recycled, whereas they collect a certain amount and they return a certain amount. So we collect 2,000 gallons, they return, recycle 2,000 gallons. In most cases, it's very seldom that we have to order large quantities of new antifreeze.
Great, thank you.
Next, we will review contracts number B1 through B3. Any questions?
yeah, just again, point of clarification. Original contract was $1.3 million, and the current contract is $4 million. Just curious as to why we were able to get such a good deal second time around.
It's a different scope of work, they're not comparable. So it's apples to oranges. One was for a development of a different scope, leading us through our transit asset management process. So I will say that we were able to bid this project. So this was an IT project, it was for development of existing software package. And we worked very closely with procurement and others. and we determined we could put this project out for bid. So it didn't just go as disadvantageous or sole source to the board. So we're looking very closely at the different software packages certainly we use, and I think CTA-wide, authority-wide, where we can bid these to companies where there's an established software package that can do the development. So it was competitively bid. So that was an innovation, but it's associated with our continuing transit asset management program and developing different areas of that program as we progress that effort.
I guess, Chris, too, just one, thanks for the clarification in terms of the price difference for this contract versus the last one. But again, I get back to something that I always talk about. I have no challenges or issues with other cities and companies doing business, but in the technology space, you would think we've got so many locally here, and I'm just, how many folks bidding on this?
I believe three bid it, yeah.
There were 3 bids for an IT RFP.
Mhm.
I don't know how complicated the work is, but it would have.
Pretty specialized software development. There are a handful of firms that can do it, so I would say this bid list, at least is my knowledge, is pretty reasonable. So A, we're bidding it, which is fairly unique, and B, this seems like a pretty reasonable group given the specialized nature of what we're doing. So we're taking an existing software package that's meant for asset management, can be used for transportation asset management as well as transit, and we're using it to develop that program at the CTA. It's a diverse group of assets, Chairman. It has everything from archaic elements, older structure, older life safety elements in our tunnels to newer ones. So it is, while the software package is out there and people can do development with it, it's a public sector asset management is a fairly limited market.
Okay.
But yes, looking for local firms that can do this is kind of the whole point, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, especially in the IT space, I realized that there are some things that, and then I was just looking, I know there's one local bidder that did respond, but I didn't know if we had ever worked with this company, we had any history with them, but it's a, what is it, 2 or 3 year contract?
I know
Yeah,
Infor
3
was.
years, so it's a 3 year contract. So
In-
we'll see.
Infor competed very keenly for this. That was evident in the quality of their submittals and the quality of their pricing.
Okay.
Any other questions?
On B2, Chris, can you walk me through the change order here?
So you'll notice, first of all, that this project has a negative change order rate. So we didn't add at the end of the day, we took away. So the major credit here is crediting out a utility allowance. That's item 31. So in particular, these substations attach to existing grids. Obviously here in this jurisdiction, we're attaching to ComEd grids. Farwell in particular was attaching to a grid in a location and in a particular grid that had some challenges. So when we originally scoped this with ComEd, there was a lot of variation in the cost that would be required to connect something took this much power to an existing grid. That grid was very old up there.
Okay.
So the level of work that we had to do that was something of an unknown. So that allowance was pretty generous, or it was focused on being able to kind of meet the worst case scenario, which we were able to work with ComEd not to have to do. So we were able to do it more cost effectively. But that $2.1 million credit drives the credit you're seeing today. But again, I'll point out that this is a three substation project, and we were able to bring it in with a reduction in price rather than increased pricing. So.
I just wanted you to know I was looking at the number.
Yes, sir.
And Chairman, if I could add that for the close of this project, they're going to exceed their goal. Their goal was originally a commitment was 26%, and they're going to hit just over 30%.
Yeah, we worked very closely with Mary and FH Pash, and they did a good job in most aspects of this project.
Okay.
Any other questions? So next we will review contract number C1. Any questions? I have a question here, okay, we used to have 12 approved, 12 approved the 12 approved firms. Okay, now, okay, we were able, okay, to find another 9, and in the MBEs and DBEs, okay, that's a good job, okay, but that tells us, okay, that we really, okay, I mean, there must be some other ones in some of the other contracts, okay, I mean, if we were able to find them here, okay, are they doing something unusual right now?
So we are doing something different. What we do now is all procurements that we receive, we send out a blast to the DB community also. So the purchasing sends out their solicitation emails, and then the diversity department also follows up with emails to not only DBs, but also the MBE community. So we send out a blast of all our procurements. So if, in fact, anyone is interested or knows anyone is interested in the procurement, they have the ability to share the information.
That's very good. Any questions?
The only, it's not a question as much as a comment. 48 months is a long time. A lot happens with companies, people sell their interests, they, go because of regulations, they're not able, probably just kind of going for it. I mean, we normally do 36 months. 48 months is a long time to keep a group together with new companies coming on, people. So I would say kind of going forward, that 36 number sounds about right, 24 to 36 months. But 48, that's a long period of time to lock in a group of financial advisors when you might have other, Hispanic, African-American women-owned businesses who might like an opportunity to be in the pool. That's a long period of time that we probably should visit and try to shrink that down just because there's so much turnover in that space, in that specialized space, kind of going forward.
Great. We'll make sure we do that next time.
And we do have the ability to put a new pool in place prior to the end of that 48 months,
Okay.
just to address your point, because there is a lot of turnover, a lot of consolidation, and,
Right.
because of the new regulatory environment on financial services.
Yeah, great.
Can you help me understand what the process is to propose a new advisor? What process do we follow?
Okay. So we were looking to establish a pool of qualified advisors as we had previously. What we did was, and we used the financial advisors for bond transactions, for TIFIA loans and the like. So we went out with an LIQ for solicitation of new financial advisors to the pool, so that we could select from that pool for those different functions that we undertake from time to time. So, I don't know if Ellen, if you want to walk through kind of the selection process, but, again, we look at qualifications and specifically to the types of financial advisory services that we're looking for.
Sure. So we ask them, it's a letter of interest and qualifications, and what we do is we ask them to show us, we give them examples of different kinds of work that we need them to do, and we ask them to let us know what kind of experience they have in that area, and then our evaluators rank them. And then we take over, we do try to get as many as we can, so once we feel that they have sufficient experience in these types of financial projects, then we qualify them.
And there was 3 particular buckets that we were looking for this pool. That's general financial advisory services, like we see for bond transactions and TIFIA loans. There's strategic financial advisory role, which we see for kind of more out-of-the-box, type of transactions, an energy savings contract or things that are kind of not bond transaction type related. And then the final was a new one that's mandated based on new regulatory requirements. That's called the Independent Registered Municipal Advisor, otherwise known as an IRMA. And again, that's due to new federal regulations.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there a particular amount of years of experience in those particular industries that you're currently looking for? Is it 5, 10, 20 years?
I'm not exactly sure what we had in there. I'll be happy to check on that and let you know.
Any other questions? Finally, we have we will review contract number E1. Any questions in E1? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 10 contracts on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and approved.
Since
I'm sorry, I got taken away for a second. The motion to approve the omnibus, or is that just
No,
on
no,
these contracts?
I'm going,
I'm sorry.
since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Will the
Second.
And again,
will the secretary call the roll,
I
please?
will. The contracts were put on the omnibus, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, I'm sorry, I got pulled away. All right, so the contracts are on the omnibus, now we're going to vote on the omnibus. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Ms. Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus is approved with 6 yes votes.
Finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
All
moved.
in favor, say
Second.
aye. We are adjourned.
I need a few minutes, Terry. Can everybody please be seated again? Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for January the 11th, 2017. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Irvine. Ms. Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board with 6 members present, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is public comment. Greg?
Yeah, the only person who previously requested to speak, Mr. Ronald Parker, just double checking. Mr. Parker, are you here? You contacted me last week. He did not show up, sir, so there's no public comment today.
Okay, the next order of business today is the approval of the December 14, 2016 board minutes that were previously distributed. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 14, 2016.
So moved.
I'll second.
And seconded. Mr. Miller.
Abstain.
Ms. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes passed with 5 yes votes, 1 abstention.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there will be no executive session today.
That's correct, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Since there is no board matters today, our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva?
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee reviewed the finance report and approved the December 2016 committee minutes. The committee also reviewed the following: an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with the Bank of America for the 2017 Bank of America Shamrock Shuffle, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the license agreement with East Side Plaza Management LLC for a bus turnaround at 3554 East 118th Street, Chicago, Illinois, and 10 purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee reviewed all of these items, recommended board approval for all of these items, and placed each item on the omnibus, recommended for board approval. That concludes my report, Chairman
Thank you,
Peterson.
Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
The motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a construction report. Chris?
Chris Bouchel, your Chief Infrastructure Officer.
Mary Person, Diversity Programs Director.
So today we're talking about 4 projects. We'll start with the 95th Terminal Improvement Program. We've seen some impacts due to weather on this project, and while the schedule and budget is tightening, we're still on schedule and on budget. We continue to work on the South Terminal and predominantly on the South Terminal foundations. You can see in some of the photographs how we continue to progress these. So these are the caisson caps, which are put on top of the caissons having been drilled in previous months. These end up being the caissons for various structural elements in the project, including the terminal itself, as well as the extension of the 95th Street Bridge to accommodate additional bus movement associated with the terminal. Some of the work occurs in the middle of the night as well as during the day, depending on the number of the pieces of equipment and the type of configuration that we're doing and where it is. Obviously, closer to the bridge and more constrained areas, so we're going to need to take lanes and do lane closures on the overnight. Wilson continues on budget and on schedule. We have been working aggressively through the winter on this project, mostly with steel erection, but also with the construction of the new Track 3 and the concrete associated with that. So we're going with a closed deck on this project, similar to what we've done on larger station projects like Belmont and Fullerton, and we'll continue to do with elements of RPM as we move forward on that project. This current phase, relative to Track 3, will come to a conclusion in the spring of this year, and then we'll move into the final completion stage of the project through the end of the year when we'll open up the station completely, the new station. So you can see here structural elements on the north side of the project. This is shoring. Construction of the, this is for the generator enclosure, but similar level of construction for the stations, particularly the 2 Wilson stations on the north and the south sides, as well as the new Sunnyside Auxiliary. Those of you that have been by will also notice we've taken the roof off of the Gerber building as part of our restoration of that building. The predominant reason we took the roof off at this point is we're putting a different type of roof on there, one that will be better for the facility and then ultimately also to get access to that Track 3. That area is critical for us to move through. So taking that roof off enables us to put pieces of equipment in and around that building that will facilitate the construction of Track 3. So here are the assembly of the different stringers that go up. You can see the platform canopy in the background. That's the existing canopy that's being used for Tracks 1 and 2. So one more month of the 5 station. Really, I just wanted to show a couple finish shots here. This was a successful project, finished on time and on budget. I don't know if Mary would like to say anything about DB on the project.
No, the contractor is exceeding their goal by a very large margin at this point in time. They're at about 35%.
Although we are still in closeout, so some invoices will be coming through, but we anticipate that strong performance throughout the project. So again, kind of giving you the picture of the final product. In addition to repairing a number of structural issues on these platforms, we were also able to introduce LED lighting. Those of you, again, either using the system or driving by, I think I've had a lot of comments from customers and others about feeling safer on those platforms because of the increased lighting levels, and also with the LEDs, they're more energy efficient, and they are more labor efficient because we have a longer lifetime for the bulbs that we've installed there. So it's a good deal for us all around and represents our current standard in terms of both retrofitting existing fixtures where funding is available, as well as installing and renovations of new stations. Same thing here. This is the Addison station. You can see the elevator. Oh, no, you can't see that. No, yes, you can. Right beyond the fair equipment. And then the press event that we had out there that was attended by various folks in the room, I think was very successful as well. So in new projects, I talked a little bit about the Ravenswood project. That project was awarded by this board at the end of 15, but it wasn't design build. There was substantial design work to be done on the signaling system in this section of track. So this is the section of track from Armitage basically through the Mart. That is the little section we call the the brown line, brown and purple lines that we call the Ravenswood connector. Putting a new signal system in here is an important project from a capacity perspective. It enables us to run trains, more trains safely to meet growing demand. We're in the phase of the project where we have completed most of the design. At the end of last summer, we issued an NTP for construction, which enabled the contractor to start buying components and then doing some of the miscellaneous housekeeping associated with a project like this. I talked about hanging hanging brackets, which enable us to hang the various cables. These projects have lots of heavy cables that get hung adjacent to structures, so starting to put those up. The structures, foundations, and then structures to support the new relay houses. Those are the houses that have all the computers in them that control the movement of trains. So all that work, you'll see a series of photographs throughout the beginning part of this year into the summer of that miscellaneous type of work that will support the ultimately turning on and the testing associated with those new signals that will go into those areas. And that concludes my report.
Any questions?
I have a question. At the CTA ADA Advisory Committee meeting on Monday, one of the committee members mentioned an issue. She has low vision and is near the Wilson station, and I guess the sidewalk closures are shift around sometimes. And so there was one point where she didn't realize the sidewalk had been closed and wound up going around, navigating around it, but then wound up in the street. I'm just wondering if there's any way that we could have a communication that people could access, like online or some way independent of just visual signage that would allow them to learn when there's sidewalk closures, when they're not consistent throughout the project.
You know, let me work with Amy on that, Amy Serp, from our own in-house staff, about what the best way to do that is, because obviously we're reaching a population that may not have standard access to compute. So we just have to figure out how to do that and get it in there, but that's an excellent point. I know that we make a lot of effort in the sidewalk closures and other things on that project to make those closures accessible, so that we put ramps, and that we're also cognizant of site issues in terms of how one would navigate through that area. So let me talk to Amy, and to the extent we have changes out there, we'll work with her to get that to the community.
Because I know people can sign up for alerts on various bus routes and train routes. Maybe there's a way people could sign up for alerts based on a specific construction project or a specific station that it could, and when there are changes, that could be just sent out as a
Great.
text.
Yeah, we'll circle around with her. That's a great
Thanks.
idea, and we'll look to implement something. So
Appreciate
absolutely.
that.
We'll also report back to you on what we do. I agree. I think it's a great idea and something we should be able to figure out a way to amplify more. So we'll put something together and let you know what we're going to do.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Chris.
Any other questions for Chris?
Not a question, just a comment, Mr. Chairman, to certainly excited about the DBEs and the percentage that was worked on, and on February the 8th, we're working out in the community with Jamie Reed and the city procurement, and Mary has already reached out. We're looking to have at least 1,000 subcontractors, contractors that we'll know about, so that we can make sure that we have a pool available. So we've been working on that, and it's all intact, and Mary has already reached out to the office, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, we intend to have both our procurement people as well as our DBE diversity people at that event, and thank you for really organizing that. It's another great opportunity for us to promote CTA and promote the contracting opportunities here at CTA, which I'm always interested in trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, just a question. I know in order to keep the 95th Street station open, we ended up starting the construction on the north side of 95th Street. Isn't that the first phase of the 95th Street new terminal?
The first phase of the 95th is on the south side, actually.
It's on the south
So
side.
we,
That's
but we've
right.
done work on both sides, for sure. You've seen photographs of work that's been done on the north side of the bridge as well as the south side, but the predominant, the first
It's on the
terminal to
south
open
side.
is
You're
south.
right, it's going toward I-57.
Yes, sir.
When does that finish? When do we complete?
We're looking to open the new south terminal at the end of 17, beginning of 18.
Okay, great. Last thing, I had an opportunity to talk with Dan Cronin, who is the DuPage Cook County Board President. There's some conversation about creating an express lane along, I guess, the Eisenhower. And I was just curious, have we had any talks with IDOT about doing work along the blue line?
We have.
Yeah.
So we have done two things. So we worked very closely with the planning department to do a vision study. We've pushed our colleagues at IDOT to be as complete as they can in terms of their improvements and what would be included in the project. So the transit is integral. We think it's integral to solving the region's air quality and congestion issues for sure. So we want them to look at it. So we've worked very closely with them on the environmental study and continue to work with them as they consider alternatives for funding that. So I believe, one, they are looking at some different alternatives in terms of the types of language that they would provide and the revenue that would generate.
Yeah, I know they talked about out by First Avenue, that sort of bottleneck when you're coming off I-88 and you're coming into the city. It sort of jams up right there. I don't know how far into the city it's going to run. But I was just curious, anytime there's construction or disruption, I always look at it as an opportunity for us to do work. And I think he was speaking at the City Club when the issue came up of possibly creating an express lane, a toll lane or something. And I was just trying to make sure we were part of those conversations in the event they do decide to do some construction work there along the Eisenhower. It also presents an opportunity for us if we've got any work scheduled as well.
Yeah, the project is probably pretty far off at the moment. There seems to be varying opinions on when it'll move forward and the funding for it. Obviously, it would be part of a state capital program.
Right.
But we are at the table and we are advocating for transit.
Okay, great.
And just to amplify that, I've had conversations directly with the Secretary of Transportation at IDOT about how we can coordinate and leverage the work that they're going to do with work and improvements we might want to do there as well. So we are definitely part of the conversation. I think Chris is correct that the big issue right now is funding to do anything along that corridor. But that is a corridor that we still need to make some improvements to. And it's on my radar as one of the options that we need to focus on as we try to figure out new funding sources and ways we can improve that branch of our service.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Chris and Mary. Appreciate it. Since our next order of business today is new business, it seems appropriate to highlight a new initiative. I had the pleasure this past Monday to join President Carter, Mayor Emanuel, Senator Durbin, Congressman Jan Joukowsky, Congressman Mike Quigley, for the announcement of the federal funding for the Red and Purple Modernization Project. I would now like to ask President Carter to update the directors about this development.
Thank you, Chairman. And as you are aware, we have been pursuing for many years the funding necessary to begin phase one of the Red Purple Modernization project. I think it might, just to put this project in context for all of you, this is a project that I personally have been involved in supporting and funding for about half of my career. It started when I was here at CTA the last time, and it became very apparent to us that if we didn't find some way to rebuild that portion of our line, we were going to face some dire consequences in terms of our ability to continue service. At the time, we had no funding source that would support the magnitude of a project such as this, which was going to cost a couple of $2 billion. Since that time, I was very much involved, both initially here at CTA and then at the Department of Transportation, in developing a core capacity program, which was put into reauthorization and which formed the basis for funding projects exactly like this. And in fact, that program was created with this project in mind. I'm pleased to say that during my time at DOT, CTA staff under Forrest's leadership moved very aggressively to take advantage of that program, and in fact placed ourselves in a position where the culmination of the events this week allowed us to be the first transit agency to receive a core capacity grant from the federal government. And then, of course, I had the pleasure of coming back to CTA and working to put in place the non-federal funding for this, which involved getting the state legislature to pass a TIF legislation that allowed us to create a transit TIF the City Council unanimously approved, which then put us in a position to put the final piece in place to fund this project. So it has been, a 13 to 14-year endeavor that we just came to closure on this week. And I'm very proud to say that we had a signing ceremony at the Argyle station, and I wanted to share with all of you the ceremonial signature for the full funded grant agreement, which is going to bring $1 billion of federal funding to this project. We were fortunate enough to not only have the mayor at this event and the chairman, but to also have Senator Dick Durbin, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, Congressman Mike Quigley, and Alderman Harry Osterman attend, along with community officials and others, to celebrate this opportunity. And I also would like to point out that the time frame that we pursued to actually get this particular grant completed at the end of this administration was very aggressive, extremely aggressive. And I can tell you from my experience in transportation, there has never been a grant that has been applied for and approved and received as quickly as this one. In fact, the administrator for FTA, Carolyn Flowers, who was also at the event, indicated that this was the fastest New Starts grant that had ever been approved in the history of the agency. And the reason we were able to do that was because of a lot of hard work of not just my staff here at CTA, many of whom are in this room, but also obviously the mayor's leadership, as well as a number of staff over at the city who had to help with the TIF and putting the TIF in place. And I want to give a special thank you to Commissioner Reifman and Department of Planning and Development for the work that they did on this, as well as Carol Brown and Alex Holt for the work that they had to put in on the financial side of this, and the intergovernmental affairs staff over at the city, because without their support and coordination to get the TIF in place, we would not have been in a position to receive the grant. So this is truly a team effort. There are a lot of people who put in a lot of long hours and long weekends to make all this happen, but we are in a position now to be able to move this project forward. The project will begin later this year, and I think it's absolutely a momentous occasion for CTA in receiving the funding, not only the largest grant in the history of CTA, but the funding for the largest construction project in the history of CTA, which we're all very excited about.
Well, let me just say, Durval, just a great job. I know I had a chance to be briefed a lot by the staff. And let me just do a few shout outs because the directors went there. You guys would have been blown away by Sylvia Garcia, the chief of staff at the finance committee meetings. That was my first time. I see Sylvia all the time, but never had an opportunity to witness her speak before a large body. And we joked about it later. I forgot she had to speak to the U.S. Senate committee. And so I guess speaking to the city council, she was comfortable, but you would have been blown away. I mean, she did a phenomenal job, and as Dorval mentioned, led by the chief of staff, Sylvia. I want to just commend her for the job she ended up doing. You've got Gerald and Jeff who handled with their staff the committee meetings. The mayor mentioned this at the press event, and it was mentioned in the paper. If one comma was out of place, if one thing was out of place, Jeremy getting the numbers right in order to make sure that that we were able to get the match. We had to have a local match in order to do this, and working with David Reefman and DPD staff, working with Carol Brown and the budget director over there, I mean, and the staff. I mean, I got a chance I attended both committee meetings. I attended some of the briefings with the staff, Mike McLaughlin. I don't know where Mike is. If there's one thing you want to know about federal money and where to get it, I mean, outside of Dorval and Sylvia, Mike has been doing that since I've been here, and I've been here since 2009. And when I came on board, he was working on federal. So again, I know there are other staff that I am forgetting who were involved in this, and I just personally, as a board chair, and on behalf of the board, want to thank you because again, it's not every day. This is the second time that I've been part of a $1 billion commitment to a City of Chicago agency. I had that opportunity in 2000 when I ran the Chicago Housing Authority. There was a $1.5 billion commitment from HUD to help with the transformation of CHA, and here we've got $1.1 billion to help with the transformation of our transit system. So I've been fortunate to be part of both, but I just wanted to do a shout out to the staff and say thank you. As Brian, I could go on and on, but again, I get to work with you guys and hear about all the things that are going on, probably a little bit more than some of the directors. But I was just really pleased at the way everybody just, stepped up. Senator Durbin joked about the fact that the staff at the Department of Transportation were finally able to enjoy Christmas and the New Year because they had been chained to their desks working on this agreement to get it done in record time. And again, I'm sure if they were working in Washington, that meant that the CTA staff and the city staff had to be available to answer questions and get them information on a timely basis. So again, Dorval, your leadership and Sylvia's leadership and all of those who worked on it, thank you. And we're excited about having that, the money in hand, because it's truly going to change the way we deliver service on the north side in terms of the RPM project. So I just wanted to personally thank everyone. Great. All right. Since there is no further business to come before the board, I'd now like to entertain a motion to, hold on, before I do that, let me do this. She's sitting in the back. She's met, I know, most of the directors, but I wanted to introduce everyone to Sherry Thornton Pierce. She's going to be starting in February. As most of you know, Joan Coogan is now working in the mayor's office as deputy chief of staff. Sherry is going to be joining us in February as the new chief of staff, so she's sitting in today on the meeting, and she will, like I said, I know she's met some of the directors. She will meet the other ones at the end of this meeting, but wanted to just welcome her here this morning as well. So now, with no further business to come before the board, I now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.